Hey, what's up, everybody? Lawler here, your inside source for all things Rocket League news. We have officially wrapped up the winter split when it comes to the grid for North America. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the final event that went down yesterday and the day before, as well as taking a look at the standings and what the implications mean. Before we get into that, as always, if you guys enjoyed the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. And if you guys would like to support me directly, best way to do so, as it shows on the bottom left, all my social medias. You can find those in the description down below. Make sure you guys go give those a like and follow as well, as it is greatly appreciated. But with that said, let's get straight into the video. We're going to crush through this pretty quick just because I am exhausted after casting all the tournaments and getting minimal sleep. As we've been back on the grind trying to play catch up with being sick. Now that we're kind of back to 100%. I'm actually sipping on an Irish hot chocolate, and for those youngsters that don't know what that is, Google it. Well, we had 16 teams battling it out as always in a 2-day format. We're going to do a quick look of group by group just to go through the results, and then we'll get into the final playoff. There was a lot of frustrations with day 2 of the playoffs due to server issues and everything else, and we'll talk about that later. And some good results from a couple teams that have in particular been performing under, with like getting knocked out almost immediately, actually making it to the Grandfinals. So you'll want to stick around for that conversation later on. So first up is Group A with Jamal Jabari, Space Station, Version 1, and Peeps. And you can see some ironic things here as well. A little bit of going ahead. Jamal Jabari in both Week 3 and Week 4 of the grid did go 3-0 in groups, but then get knocked out immediately both times to Alpine Esports, getting swept. So you feel for Jamal Jabari. They play such a good group. They put themselves in a really good position, and then they just get smacked. So real unfortunate for them. Space Station, Version 1, and the Peeps all go 1 and 2 trading matches, and all losing to Jamal Jabari when we all thought it was going to go the opposite, where it was going to be Jamal Jabari that lost, and then Space Station, Version 1, and Peeps are all going to go 2 and 1. But that's not the case because of the head-to-head differential and the way that the game differential works. When you have a 3-way tie, it goes by game differential. If you have a 2-way tie, then it goes head-to-head, which is why Space Station's in the second spot overall, even though Version 1 did beat them in Game 5. Results-wise, all the teams look pretty good. Jamal Jabari just seems to be a really weird team for the guys at the top to get used to. Very chippy, very cut rotation, just so they can bump and knock you off the play. It's really annoying. It's tough to get used to, but it is effective, so credit to them there. They just seem to fall apart against Alpine. I don't know if it's due to being under the pressure of a single elimination or what, but when it comes to Alpine, man, Alpine's got their number. We then get into Group B. You got Rogue, Energy, Charlotte Phoenix, and Continuum, with Rogue going 3-0 and taking first in the group. Energy falling just short of that. Their only loss coming from Rogue, which Rogue does sweep them 3-0. So exciting stuff there. Rogue 1, Energy 2, Charlotte Phoenix 3, Continuum 4. We then go into Group C. We got Pittsburgh Knights, G2, Ghost Gaming, and United in that order. G2 actually has a better game differential at +2, but Pittsburgh Knights, because they are tied for first with 2 and 1, it does go head-to-head. So only 2 people tied, it goes head-to-head. But if it's 3 people tied like it was in Group A, then it goes by game differential. So in this circumstance, it is G2 that ends up losing to PK. So PK 1, G2 2, Ghost 3, United 4. United, man, has been struggling as of late. Just can't seem to get those wins in those close matches. You look at Group D then, it's Envy, KCP, Sonics, and Alpine in that order. And again, kind of weird, the expectation of Envy being the most dominant team, the team that is going to win the group regardless. And then you have KCP, Sonics, and Alpine, all somewhat similar playstyles, fast, chaotic, and aggressive. And it's KCP, who's actually been in kind of a slump, who ends up on top over those, with Alpine being at the bottom, even though they've been working on their consistency. Sonics to me just kind of is a hit and miss right now. Sometimes they look really, really good. Like they go to 5 against Envy, but then they lose to KCP 3-1. So kind of a weird scenario for that one. But with that said, it then looks at the seeding. We're going to jump into the second part, which is the playoffs. Looking at the round of 16, you got Jamal Jabari versus Alpine. We already discussed Alpine having their number. Energy ends up going 3-0 over Ghost. Envy goes 3-0 over United. Space Station goes 3-0 over Charlotte Phoenix. And then when you get into the lower half of the bracket, you actually get some parity as compared to just sweeps galore. Pittsburgh Knights does 3-1 Continuum. Kansas City Pioneers loses to Version 1 3-1. The Peeps beat Rogue 3-1, which Rogue dropping out super early opens up a lot of doors to Version 1, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. And then G2 and Sonics go into 5. So Sonics does put up a pretty good fight, but G2 in a hot streak. I will say that this was really frustrating for a lot of people. I was casting in the middle of this. It was 1-1 Kansas City Pioneers and Version 1. And then servers went down and they went down for a pretty long time. It was like a good 10-15 minutes. And for most of the teams that were going to win, I don't think there was anybody that like magically won just because of the servers and stuff. But I will say that for a lot of teams that did not make it through, like the V1 KCP game in particular, it's 1-1 in the series, and then you have a 15-20 minute break, and it's like all the momentum that the team may have had or otherwise has basically turned the series into a best of 3, like a true best of 3, no momentum, everything else. It's a clean slate. It's just a really bad feeling for both teams. Version 1 did just win in overtime right before the break. So if they would have came back and lost, I think it would have had a really bad feeling. And I still think that Kansas City Pioneers may also have that same feeling where it's like, hey man, we were pretty close to winning, and all of a sudden now we got to wait for 15-20 minutes. And it's like, now any momentum we did have is completely gone. We were pretty close in that series. Like, we were taking it to version 1. We tied it up close. Like, we are super competitive with them. And then the big break, and they come back, and version 1 claps them 5-1, 3-1. So it's like, in a series that was super competitive, Kansas City Pioneers is now completely one-sided. And it's like, you kind of have to look to that long break because of the server issues and be like, man, this stuff should not be happening. You just put, what, $20 million into Fortnite or whatever the hell it was? Why is it servers for Rocket League are still so poor? This is an ongoing thing. Their servers have been an issue. You see them tweeting about it consistently now, and it's an ongoing thing. I usually don't have any issues with playing on NA East when I normally queue. I'm from the Midwest. But as of late, my server will randomly that I'm playing on jump up to 100 plus ping, and it's happening consistently. So servers, again, continue to be an issue. I do hope there's a large emphasis and focus on that. Why there's not dedicated servers for RLCS matches that they can give you, I also don't know. I do know the RLCS is played on specific RLCS servers, but I don't think that happens for the grid because the grid is organized by like the coaches. I found out that Fireburner is actually the one that has to host the lobbies for version 1, which to me is also really weird. So again, there's some really odd stuff. To provide a little insight as well, there's certain accounts that have a whitelist privilege where they basically choose your Steam account and give you the capability to get like the pause, the admin resetting score preferences and stuff. But unless one of those whitelist accounts actually hosts the series, then they can't do that. So it's just, it makes for some really weird admin calls and everything else, and just isn't a good look. I do hope that they start to refine that because on LAN, obviously you don't have those issues, but when you're doing a lot of stuff online, there needs to be a better process if we're going to continue to live in a pandemic world where we can't do stuff live on a dedicated server. Jumping into the quarterfinals, then you got Alpine versus Energy, and Alpine does put up a pretty good fight against NRG. A back and forth series one way and the other, 2 overtimes as well. Pretty exciting match, and good to see Alpine put up a pretty good fight, even though they do drop out in the top 8. You then go to Space Station versus Envy, and this is the start of the 2 teams that I was talking about at the beginning of the video, where Space Station has been dropping to lowers pretty early on and screwing over a bunch of other teams before they make a lower bracket run in the regionals. This is not the case. Team Envy, a team that I consider probably the best in North America at the current moment, is dropping to Space Station in 5, 2 overtimes as well. But this is really good, I think, for Space Station. Even though it's not regionals, it is right before. Regionals will be starting on Saturday. So to have the chance to kind of get some positive momentum going before the weekend, I think is a really big deal. So as for Envy, fallen short in 2 back-to-back grids. They did get to the Grandfinals in 3, and then this one dropping out in the quarterfinals is pretty surprising, especially with Space Station, who's been here and there. V1, we did get to play against Space Station in groups, and Space Station put up a pretty good fight, but it definitely felt a little bit off earlier on in their matches, so glad to see that they fixed whatever was going on to beat Envy, because Envy's a tough opponent. Then go version 1 versus Pittsburgh Knights, and man, Pittsburgh Knights is frustrating. Game 1 has 7 minutes and 43 seconds of OT. Pretty nuts. There's a clip going on the subreddit right now of Com hitting a flip reset musty to win in a game as well. Just some pretty crazy matches. Pittsburgh Knights playstyle though is really frustrating. And version 1 did a really good job of adjusting to it. Pittsburgh Knights kind of stacking the box. They don't really want to challenge, so they kind of stay a little bit more passive. Because of that, it gives you a lot of space. So Gimmick in particular in this series slowed it down, really drew out defenders, forced challenges, lots of fakes, and the rest got involved. Torment also stepped up really huge with a lot of his shots, going for some flip resets and some dunks and stuff. So really good series overall. Pittsburgh Knights, man. Another team that was kind of in a weird scenario where they weren't as dominant, where they were in the regionals when they reverse swept Space Station and kind of progressed forward. Puts up a really good fight here. Good to see them in the quarterfinals. But version 1 does take the victory. And then you go down to G2 and the Peeps. And unfortunately for the Peeps, not able to hold out. This series does have the second longest overtime in RLCS history in a competitive level. 9 minutes and 11 seconds, just 1 second short actually of the record at 9 minutes and 12 seconds. Peeps does win to that overtime. So a nuts series overall, but G2, I'll talk about here back to back. G2 in the semifinals against version 1 did not really make a mistake. 4-2 in favor of G2, a pretty back and forth series with one OT that G2 does win pretty early on. But they don't really make a mistake. If you are not bumping or demoing or finding a way to make magic happen as an individual, G2 does not give you anything. I think it's very commendable what they have accomplished as a team and what Jazo and the rest of the guys are doing over there, because Chicago is playing the best he's ever played. Super consistent. Rizzo dodging demos and still setting demos up, boost denies, facilitating the field. Also just being a nuisance on offense altogether. And then JNAPS, when you don't expect him, comes flying in from out of nowhere, puts a shot on target, or it's a beautiful pass, or creates an opportunity for Chicago, or whatever it may be. But G2's firing on all cylinders. They look super clean. And this just isn't a one-off thing. They did the same thing last week as well. And it's good to see G2 put up a pretty good fight. They've had these big games escape them as of late. They still haven't been able to do it in the regionals, but if they keep playing like they are now, without a doubt, like they'll find themselves in at least the semifinals coming in the regionals in a week plus from now. So G2 looked really good. Version 1 still kept it competitive. You take and look at like goal differential. It's only like a handful in favor of G2. So version 1 still put up a fight. That's 2 back-to-back semifinal finishes for them. I'll talk about implications in a bit here and why that's important. But G2 looking absolutely dominant. They go up against the winner of Space Station and Energy in the other semifinal, which Space Station beats Energy 4-2. Energy wins the first 2, 3-2 and 5-1, and then Space Station wins 4 in a row. I tuned into the series after the V1 broadcast when it was 2-0, and then Space Station just won ever since after that. From what I saw, it was just a matter of getting used to Energy as a playstyle. Envy and Energy definitely have some different approaches to the game, with Energy being obviously very offensive heavy and a lot of different creativity solo opportunities, while Envy is very heavily focused on sustained pressure and just high percentage decision making and making sure that they control the pace, while Energy has a little bit more chaotic energy to them. So I feel like it took a little bit for Space Station to adjust, but that's something that they're very talented at and something that Chrome is oh so good at with that team. So Space Station does a really good job of adjusting to Energy, and then after that, all 1-goal games, but they win every single one of them, and I think that's commendable. So credit to Space Station. They and G2 are the two teams I mentioned at the beginning of this, where they have been in a weird scenario where they both drop super early in regionals, but then they go on lower bracket runs. For them to both find themselves in the grand finals of the grid right before the regional, I think is a pretty big deal, even though the guys don't put as much weight into the grid, which I hope changes now that it's top 6. This is a pretty big deal. So G2 and Space Station go back and forth. 2 OTs, but man, G2 just looking perfect. I mean, every game is pretty much a 1-goal game minus, I think, 1 or 2, where it's 2-0 and 3-1. So other than those anomalies, like, it is super close and really tight-knit. But G2 just, they're going to keep it close, and you're going to have to work really hard to get it. And against a team like Space Station that is really good at creating opportunities, for G2 to still take their victories, I think is really, really telling of how the tournament went for the grid. And credit to G2 as well. So really well played out from G2. Commendable on their decision making and what they're doing and how clean they're playing. Kind of a take everything, give nothing kind of mentality from G2, because their offense is still stupid, and their defense, even though when you get them on defense, they tend to make a little bit more mistakes. I haven't seen that panicky style of defense from G2 in a while. They look really comfortable, and a lot of the reason why is they put so much emphasis on clearing the ball out so quickly. It feels like anytime you put pressure on G2, if you don't find a way to challenge it immediately, it is immediately put back the other way, and all that pressure you worked on to like fight so hard to get out of your half, you only get like half a second breather and it's right back on your end. So G2 doing a really good job, and credit to them in the way that they're playing. Last but not least, before I kind of close out this video, something important too. If you go into Liquipedia, and I'll have links to this stuff all in the bottom, if you go check out the rankings, you can go to NA rankings and then the grid rankings for winter. The reason why this is important is in the yellow, it does show who has the ability to be into the spring split. So we don't know the details of what the format's going to be for spring or what it all entails or when the dates are. But it does show the 10 teams that are automatically into the spring split. The second part of that that's really important is that whoever is in the top 6, right now Rogue and V1 are tied for 6th. and they'll have to play a best of 5, I'm pretty sure, if it ends up going that way. But the reason why is in the legend, it shows that qualify for Winter Major as the grid wild card. In the past, and I've talked about this rule, if you are the #1 overall team, you just got into the major. That's not the case anymore. What it does now is it checks the regional results. It also checks the grid results. And in the regional, if you've already qualified, fine. But if you're in the grid and you have yet to qualify, it'll cross-examine that as well with the top 6 from the grid with the regional, and basically go down the list and be like, okay, Energy is #1 right now in the grid. Well, they've already qualified for land. That doesn't matter. G2 already qualified. Space Station already qualified. Doesn't matter. They keep working down that list in the top 6 until they find one that hasn't. And right now, Rogue and V1 being tied. V1 has yet to qualify for the major, so they may just have an automatic bid in as the grid wild card. So a pretty big deal with Rogue getting eliminated immediately and version 1 in 2 back-to-back weeks taking semifinals. Pretty big deal. So pretty interesting to see how that one plays out. We still have to see how regionals is going to work for the 3rd regional, which is in partnership with X Games. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about with that, check out my video from yesterday. All the details can be found there. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you guys have any more questions, comments, concerns about ranks and all that kind of stuff, or if it's just confusing, you can check out the links in the description down below along with all my socials. If you want to go give those a like and follow. And any questions in the comments, I'll try to get back to you. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. We'll catch you next time. Peace.